Welcome to the September 2020 monthly horoscope. I am Miss Jenny, your astrologer, and we've got quite the month ahead of us. So before we get started, let's talk about the real obvious stuff here. So the most notable thing about this month is that Mars is going retrograde. It is stationing retrograde exactly on September 10th, but we're feeling it definitely for the full 10 days, or maybe even back into the last week of August. We're certainly feeling the effects of that Mars grinding to a standstill and then going backwards. Okay. Now, with Mars, what we also know, and I'm sure you've heard this on all of the other astrology sources, is that Mars is and remains in Aries for an exceptionally long period of time. Now, Mars in its home sign, or its own sign of rulership, Aries, makes it very powerful, right? And we've talked about this, how any planet in its own natural ruler, sign of rulership, becomes much more powerful because it's completely at home. And what was it, like the television show Cheers, where everybody knows its name, right? So Mars is among more than a few planets that have been in its own sign of rulership this last year and this year. The challenge, of course, is that Mars and its sign of rulership is squaring off with Saturn in Capricorn, which is also in its sign of rulership. Now, what's interesting to note about these two particular planets and these signs, ready? Mars rules young men. Saturn rules old men. So when you have Mars and Saturn in a conflict aspect, like the square they're in now and continue to be for quite some time, it's a lot like the animal kingdom, where the young bucks or the young alpha males are trying to establish or assert, their dominance as the leader that will take the herd safely into the future. But in order to do that, it has to challenge the old leader, right? So it on the surface, it looks like the battle of young against old, right? Impulse and chaos versus order and control. But really, it's about evolution and about the passing of the baton, and also demonstrations of merit and worthiness. Are you strong enough? Are you capable enough? Are you brave enough? Are you worthy enough to lead this group into the future safely? So the thing about it is, this is nothing to say about the old leadership. The old guard may be perfectly fine, or the old guard may be weak and failing, and really not up to the task, the continued task of safeguarding and safely herding the tribe or the group or the pack, right? Into the future and forward across, dangerous terrain safely. In either event, it's not something, this is not a responsibility that's just handed off because it's time to go. This is a responsibility. It's a responsibility, Saturn, that must be accompanied with a sense of integrity and commitment and ownership and accountability, all Saturn things, right? So Mars is the drive and the push and the cutting edge to make change happen, because in order to move forward in life since the beginning of time, we have to be able to cut from the past. We have to shed the past like a snake sheds its skin. We have to let go of things to make room for new things to happen, right? And Mars is very much about that cutting away the dead weight, cutting away the things that are that have sentimental value but are going to sink the boat if we don't get rid of it. So Mars and Saturn remain in conflict aspect or challenge aspect with each other, young versus old, young men versus old men, new, fresh, progressive agendas versus the old way of doing things. And the old way of doing things, the old men, the old people, all the things represent the past and history and foundations and structures that everything we know is built on, is not going to just hand it over. You've got to earn that. You have to earn that. And part of earning that is having your mettle tested, testing your mettle to show that you are indeed worthy and capable enough of having that baton passed to you. This is our month in September. Now, we've been going through this for a while. Ever since Mars went into Aries and got close to these Capricorn planets, this is what we've been dealing with. So on the surface, like the here and now, right, it may not look like that, but take a step back, take a couple steps back and look at these situations again and put it in that context. And suddenly everything's going to make a lot more sense. So there you go. Now, with Mars going retrograde this month and really, really close to those Capricorn planets, this does up the ante a little bit, like a gambler's card game. We're kind of adding a little bit extra to the pot to make it even more spicy, juicy, risky. So Mars is going to go retrograde, and that, it's got its own set of issues. We talk a lot about that in the blog because there's a whole lot of teeth gnashing and chest beating and not actually accomplishing anything. More about that in the blog. Now, what's important to understand is we're not going to necessarily see a lot of productive action until Mars gets down towards the end of the month and begins reconnecting with these Capricorn planets it just passed. So we've got a couple of weeks here in the middle of, most of September, honestly, where there's a whole lot of threatening and not a whole lot of doing, for good and bad. Don't you threaten me with a good time. So it doesn't all have to be negative, but not a lot's getting done. When Mars gets down into and returns to an exact aspect with Saturn, which will then move backwards and hit Pluto, and I believe it's going to get close to Jupiter in a month or so, but won't get there exactly, but still with an orb to feel it. As at the end of the month when Mars does this, that's when we should see the grand battle royale commence, right? So decisions have to be made, actions have to be taken. Hand, like in a card game, the hand has to be forced. Show your hand, ante up, or fold. Okay, that's what we're seeing at the end of the month. So we've got a couple of weeks between there where there's a whole lot of noise, right? A lot of dramatic spinning of wheels, but not necessarily a lot that's useful. Okay, now, with that said, at the very beginning of the month, we've got a week in here between the 6th and the 13th. That's going to be very, very active because we've got a couple of planets changing signs and we've got Jupiter going direct. Yay! Imagine the sound of angels singing in a choir right now. So Jupiter stationing direct, oh my God, is going to give us some reprieve. These planets changing signs, Mercury and Venus, as well as Mars, which stations retrograde the 10th, so it's in that week as well. It's a busy week. They're all turning or sitting on, at the time that Jupiter goes direct, on the day Jupiter goes direct, all these planets, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, will also, along with Jupiter, be sitting on some really important fixed stars, which could mean a lot of different things, up to including people beating the drums of war or threatening to. Basically, not threatening us with a good time. But again, Mars is what they call void of course. So Mars is not making any meaningful aspects at this time. It's just kind of hanging out in limbo, stranded by itself, right? So it's like a crazy person in the middle of the street, like, screaming and going off, and there's nobody around them, right? So they're being very loud and dramatic and making their point, but they're not being very effective because nothing's getting done. So that's what we're kind of dealing with after Mars goes retrograde. And Jupiter goes direct. So now, with Jupiter going direct, typically we think, oh, this is great. And I'm not going to tell you otherwise. Jupiter is going direct, and that is a very, very good thing. So with Jupiter going direct at like 17 Capricorn, what this means is that Jupiter is now going to move into a tighter sextile with Neptune, as well as crossing Pluto and then Saturn. And Saturn's a little bit, there's good stuff there, but it's not like somebody giving you an ice cream cone good. There's some really good things that have a lot to do with wisdom that we're going to be dealing with when Jupiter and Saturn come together. But before then, Jupiter will get involved in a happy relationship with Neptune, and will get in a happy relationship with Pluto, because Jupiter and Pluto are the miracle makers. So we've got some good stuff coming. So we're relieved to see Jupiter go direct. And there are, look at how gray this administration has made me, for God's sakes. Jesus God. Another 4 years of them, and I'm going to have like no hair at all. I have like 3 white hairs on top of my head. Anyway. With Jupiter moving into a sextile with Neptune as it's going direct, again, more things about saving graces and 11th hour miracles, and just really good charitable stuff. So again, you are metaphysicians. Put your money and your efforts where your supposed beliefs are and start manifesting good, positive outcomes, right? I mean, unless you're really, really fixed on this idea that, it's all for naught and the world is coming to an end and this is just what it is and nothing you do is ever going to affect any meaningful change, on a mass level, this is the time to really dig in and discover what it means to have faith and to pray or petition from a place of confident faith, right? And, those of us who struggled with the 2016 election and the outcomes, and the subsequent years that followed with this administration, we've had our faith shot and we've had our sense of security and normalcy and decency completely rattled. This has not been an easy time. In the big picture, there are greater things happening. So we needed these experiences, or maybe other people needed these experiences to kind of shake them loose from this illusion they've been living in. But whatever it is that we've gone through, we're here now. And every day from that time to now, we should all have been practicing petitioning from a place of faith, right? Keeping an eye on the outcome we want to see, not the one we're afraid is going to happen. So this month, especially with Mars making its station and Jupiter making its station, this is definitely a call to action. When Mars goes retrograde, it's internalized. So Mars stationary retrograde is asking us to go deep inside and dig up the tools and resources and impetus that we need to make things happen. We've got to go inside for that. It's not going to be given to us. We're not going to find it out there, right? With Jupiter going direct, it's giving us an opportunity. It's allowing us an opportunity to make forward progress, to make motion moving forward. So for those of you who are, especially here in the US, because again, I'm US based, so this is the newsfeed I'm living with. For those of you who are struggling right now and looking at some really horrific, situations nobody should want to deal with, including being homeless with your kids, or being evicted and being homeless, or God forbid worse with your kids. Luckily, your kids aren't in cages being ripped from your arms, so there is that. Or about to shut down businesses that are never going to come back again, and you don't know how you're going to make your money after this, because who knows what's going to happen, right? All of these things. We all got to get through it the best that we can, but keep your faith in the right place. Understand that no matter what's going on right now, this does not have to be the only outcome in your life. This does not have to be the outcome that ends your life. This is a challenge that you have to rise to. But ultimately, even when we're rising to our challenges, the best possible outcomes are anchored and rooted in the absolute faith and conviction that you are bigger than your problems, that your faith and your ability to manifest and magnetize to yourself preferred outcomes are greater than these small, very fragile realities, which are changing from minute to minute, that you're living with right now. Right? So circumstances are very fragile and subject to being broken and changed. Your faith, however, can move mountains if it's strong enough. So right now is the time we all need to work on muscle flexing our visualization, all right? Because we've got a lot of planetary support for that too. And again, like anything good, it's not going to be given to you. You have to, like that young ram that wants to lead the tribe to the future and safety, you've got to earn that, right? The old ones and the established things are not going to hand it to you just because you want it. You've got to show that you have the muscle and the strength and the fortitude and the commitment and the resolve and the grit and all those wonderful, wonderful adjectives, right? That make you the person most capable of getting through these times, and leading other people along the way. Okay, so with that said, ups and downs this month. So the good news is on the love tip. It should be actually a pretty romantically active month. So look for some opportunities to get your little love lights going. This is a particularly ripe time. So I am personally a huge fan of competence in men. I am heterosexual, so my preference is men. And I guess if I were lesbian, my preference would be competence in women. But in any event, my preference is competence. I love competent, efficient people. I love boring old Virgos. So, with that said, people who are invested in and participate in hard work, right? Efficiency, getting the job done, like doing the job that needs to be done, being able to make decisions and be clear about what they're doing and why they're doing it. These are the people who are going to get the most love this month. So for those of you who are looking for love and you are not one of those characters, if there is someone that you are interested in and you see these qualities in them, this is a great time to pass on the recognition and compliment that you acknowledge that and you see it. It'll get you a long way. And for those of you unsung heroes, you beautiful, lumberjacks and lumberjennies in the world, that go out and get the job done, right? Thanklessly, tirelessly, without any fanfare or, asking for parades to be thrown, and recognition of that. This is your month to shine because everybody is noticing and everyone's paying attention. So people who are looking for long-term commitments, and relationships that last, no matter how the relationship is organized, whether it's monogamy, polyamory, polygamy, polyandry, triad marriages, or like whatever your relationship configuration is. For those of you who are looking for long-term stability in that preferred relationship frame, this is the month to really start going out and opening those doors and letting Cupid in, because it's very, very possible and more likely that you'll find people who are just as serious as you are. And that's a good thing. The downside, of course, is that while Mars is going retrograde until we get to the end of the month, and Mars, hooks up with the first planet it comes to, which will be Saturn, and there's a lot about that in the blog as well. There's going to be a lot of beating of chest, gnashing of teeth, dramatic wheels spinning, people demanding to be acknowledged. Do you know who you're talking to? Roar! Yeah. Just like every other month. However, this month there's a little bit of a flavor to that we want to pay attention to. So the most important thing right now is that, one, people who feel like they have no power in a situation or any ground, like they feel like they're the weakest, most vulnerable members of a group and have been for a while, will be the most visible and heard. At the same time, the other people who are also most visible and heard will also be the people who have had all the power and had all of the control that secretly feel like they're losing ground. They will also be the most, working very hard at being the most visible and heard at this time too. So lots of teeth gnashing, and chest beating, and snarling and puffing themselves up to be bigger than they are. But remember, Mars is void, of course, so not a lot's going to go very far with these threats, at least until the end of the month. Which is to say, and this was the point of all of this, pay attention. Because what you see on the surface, hidden in there, is a little glimmer or peek at some insight or piece of information that's going to be very important to you in the long term. But only people who are paying attention to it and suddenly get that flash of insight, like, oh, wait a minute, right? Like there's this huge picture separate from this, that they suddenly see as a result of this thing. Those are the people who are going to benefit from this. But you got to be paying attention. All right, so let's get to the chart. Alrighty, so we're actually starting the month off with a full moon that is discussed in the blog, and I think it's mentioned earlier in the video, but we're going to jump past all of that and go to some of the high points for the month. Now, the first thing that's a big thing is we've got a quarter moon and the Mars retrograde stationing occurring within 24 hours of each other. That means that this quarter moon, this period of time around the quarter moon, which could be the September 9th and 10th, will be particularly active and, most important, very chaotic. So be aware of your environment. People are going to be more accident prone at this time, lots of slips, oops, and drops. We've got a heavy mutable sign emphasis and Neptune involved and Mars stationing. So we can expect some major calamitous events occurring, especially where, well, travel and motion, things in motion or that should be in motion are involved. So there's that. If you are scheduled for any type of surgery or procedure, especially if it's a cosmetic sort of thing, these are not good days for this. So if you can, you might want to consider rescheduling it for better days than around this particular 48 hours. Okay, now at the beginning of the month, be aware that September 2nd to 4th are very active days to watch. Look for anything in your life or in your world reaching a climax or culmination point around the full moon on the 2nd to also reveal the extent and the nature of changes that will accompany it following these days. Now, these are also, just a little sidebar, these are also great days to gain advantage of situations by being proactive and communicating in pleasant, helpful ways that show ingenuity and an interest in group benefit. Team player is the secret to a beneficial outcome from this week. And of course, there was that one week. From September 9th to September 12th, 2020, all bases are loaded in this cosmic baseball game with a new moon at bat to finish out the inning. So, beginning September 9th, we are looking at the Mars retrograde station. The Mars retrograde station is occurring at 28 degrees Aries, and it is essentially going to spin its wheels until we get to the end of the month, and it can actually connect with something to give it a direction to go in. So between here and there, expect lots of gnashing of teeth, over-the-top, dramatic, tantrum-like behavior. And again, particularly around the station itself, slips, drops, oops, and falls. Be very, very careful. People and situations are more highly accident prone than ever at this time. Immediately following, of course, we do have that quarter moon that we just discussed. And then, as if this couldn't get any more entertaining, on the 12th, almost immediately behind those two, Jupiter goes direct. Woohoo! Now, the good news is that Jupiter is going direct, and we really, really like that, especially right now. So this particular Jupiter station is going to give us both a square to the Sun and a conjunction to Pluto, which could be good, could be bad. So it gives people in positions of leadership a big signal boost. Unfortunately, how that pans out and delivers has a lot to do with their character and their integrity and their sense of ethics. So if you're dealing with leadership that is not committed to taking the higher ground, as it were, this will be a very problematic time. If you're dealing with leadership that is very much about doing the right thing and taking the higher ground and looking out for everyone underneath them, then this is a fantastic time because you're getting a great signal boost. Now, remember, leadership is not just politicians and government. Leadership is also employers, managers, heads of household, group leaders. So even in your circle of friends or sphere of influence, online or in person, there's always that one person who is the lead, the point person that kind of leads the group and sets the tone and direction things are going in. They will be getting, everybody across the board in those positions will be getting a signal boost at this time. And again, could be good, could be bad, depending on what their intentions and character are before this comes along. And also remember, Mars has just stationed retrograde. So there's a whole lot of look at me, pay attention to me, take me seriously, do you know who you're talking to kind of demand for recognition occurring. Hopefully, this is coming from places and sources that need recognition and acknowledgement because they've been underserved and underacknowledged, as opposed to bullies, people in positions of power or influence, even momentarily, taking this opportunity to become even more obnoxious about their demand for importance and power in situation than is already there. Now, we get a little bit of a breather in here. And then a few days later, on September 17th, we've got a brand spanking new moon in Virgo, which is going to be a huge relief. This will be something to be happy about. So with Jupiter going direct, having just gone direct a couple days before, and now this new moon trining those wonderful Capricorn planets, we should have finally some breathing room and some ability to make some really positive changes and progress and headway in our lives. This is going to be a really, really good time to plant important seeds because we're starting a brand new cycle of productivity. So there's more information about that in the blog as well. Now, I want to give you guys a little tidbit and then we're going to wrap up the video. Watch this date, September 24th, 2020. Allow yourself a day ahead or behind this date, depending on your time zone. Look for shocking developments and unexpected breaks to become a major source of concern and tightening of controls in either your personal life, the world at large, or both. Stocks, big banks, and corporate interests may be in for rude awakenings this day. Stay alert and do not take unnecessary risks, especially if it involves your money. And that is it, my lovies. We are done, and I'm hoping you guys have a great September. And if you're looking for the blog post, the blog is located at primalgirlwellness.blogspot.com. For those of you who are interested in listening to the audio or the podcast, you can find me on anchor.fm/primalgirlwellness. We are down to earth astrology over there. And for those of you who are on Twitter, we're getting a little lonely over here. We could use a little love. My Twitter address is twitter.com/destiny and fate2. You'll see me with my profile name, Down to Earth Astrology. So that's it. I'm hoping you guys have a great September. Let's make the most of it. And we'll see you soon.